A broad smile unfolds across Pepe Reina's bronzed features as he recalls the injustice served up to Mikel Arteta in the dorm room of a Barcelona farmhouse they used to call home. Reina was on the top bunk and Arteta below, but there was no doubt where the noise was coming from. "I was the one snoring and the other lads in the room were getting upset," explains the former Liverpool and Napoli goalkeeper. "So they started to throw shin pads, shoes, flip-flops, anything they could lay their hands on. But because I was on top and he was on the bottom, many of them ended up hitting Mikel. The sharing of that bed cost him many sleepless nights and almost our relationship." Plucked from Madrid and San Sebastian respectively as some of the brightest young talents in Spain, Reina and Arteta left home in their mid-teens to join La Masia. FC Barcelona's world-famous residential academy has produced Lionel Messi, Xavi and Andres Iniesta and, until 2011, was located in a stone farmhouse across the road from the Nou Camp, the club's iconic stadium. When Tina Turner first spoke out about the violence she endured during her marriage to Ike Turner, it was an act of bravery to expose herself so publicly. "I was insanely afraid of that man," she told People magazine in 1981, revealing the painful reality behind the hugely successful musical duo. Tina's scorching description of their marriage included being made to watch a live sex show in a brothel on their wedding night, and being beaten with a shoe stretcher while she was pregnant. She also spoke about Ike throwing scalding coffee at her, and of being brutalized with a coat hanger. In 1968, she tried to take her own life. "I was afraid to put it out, talk about the abuse, because of what I would get from Ike," she told journalist Carl Arrington. Maxim had been fighting for 200 hours without a break when he was killed by a Russian sniper in the city of Bakhmut. For 8 days he did not eat or sleep, his mother Lilia says. He couldn't even close his eyes for 5 minutes because the sniper could shoot. There's a reason why she now calls Bakhmut hell, hell. It's the city that took the life of one son and left her only other child seriously injured. Her one scant comfort, that one died saving the life of the other. Maxim and Ivan volunteered to fight when Russia invaded Ukraine last year. At the time, Maxim was 22 years old and Ivan just 18. Ivan, the younger brother who still carries the scars, says they were inseparable. "He was always with me and I with him. For me, he was the dearest person." ABBA's Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson have ruled out a reunion at the 2024 Eurovision Song Contest in their native Sweden. Next year will be the 50th anniversary of the band winning the competition with their song Waterloo. Speaking to Reports Newsnight, the pair also dismissed the idea that they might compose the host nation's entry. Since ABBA won in 1974, Sweden has gone on to win Eurovision 5 more times, including this year in Liverpool. Bjorn and Benny, who swore never to tour again and reportedly turned down an offer of $1 billion to play 100 shows at the turn of the millennium, say they do not want to get back together with Agnetha Faltskog and Annie Frid Lyngstad to perform, even for one night. Succession star Brian Cox has said he thought his character Logan Roy was killed off too early in the latest series of the acclaimed drama. The Dundee-born actor praised writer Jesse Armstrong, however, for executing the plotline brilliantly. The fourth and final series of the Emmy-winning show saw Cox's media mogul killed off in the third episode. "I mean, he'd made him die in the third episode," Cox continued. "And it was a great scene. That's why I didn't watch it, because I have no interest in watching. My own death will come soon enough. But I just thought, wow, he did it brilliantly. It was a brilliant scene, the whole act." Asked if he considered suggesting to Armstrong that Logan was being killed off too soon, Cox said, "No, I didn't. There's no point going down that road, especially with somebody like Jesse, because he's already made a plan." The new owner of Silicon Valley Bank's SVB U.S. operations, First Citizens, is cutting around 500 roles held by former SVB workers, the Reporters understands. 2 months ago, First Citizens bought the business after SVB's collapse. The failure of SVB, along with two other U.S. banks, triggered fears of a more widespread banking crisis, which forced authorities to step in. SVB's business in the UK was bought in March by London-headquartered banking giant HSBC for a nominal £1, $1.25. The team in India that supports SVB is not impacted by the changes, he added. The Reporters understand that the job cuts amount to around 3% of the company's total workforce. The story was first reported by US-based news website Axios. First Citizens is based in Raleigh, in the U.S. state of North Carolina, and calls itself America's biggest family-controlled bank. It has been one of the largest buyers of troubled banks in recent years. A ship that was grounded in the Suez Canal has been refloated, shipping agent Leth Agencies says. Tugboats had been working to refloat the bulk carrier, named Xinhai Tong 23, the company said earlier. The Suez Canal Authority did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Suez Canal, one of the busiest waterways in the world, was impassable for almost a week after a giant container ship became stuck. The Suez Canal Authority has successfully refloated MV Xinhai Tong 23 at 0740 hours, Leth said in a tweet. The ship, which sails under the Hong Kong flag, had been not under command, near the southern end of the canal, positioned at an angle next to the canal's eastern side, according to the Marine Traffic Ship Tracker. The head of the Russian paramilitary group that said it was behind a cross-border raid into Russia from Ukraine has vowed more such incursions. I think you will see us again on that side, said Denis Kapustin, who leads the Russian Volunteer Corps, RDK. Russia said it had repelled the raid, killing more than 70 saboteurs. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu promised a harsh response to any future incursions. Ukraine denies involvement in the raid. Denis Kapustin is known as a Russian nationalist, and his group openly says it wants a mono-ethnic Russian state. The RDK, along with the League of Russia Legion, LSR, claimed Monday's raid into Belgorod region. Speaking on Wednesday to reporters on the Ukrainian side of the border, its leader, whose nom de guerre is White Rex, said, "We're satisfied with the result." A 95-year-old woman who was tasered by police at an Australian care home, sparking a public outcry, has died. Claire Nowland was critically injured after police responded to reports she was wandering around the home with a steak knife at about 4 o'clock last Wednesday. New South Wales Police, NSW, said she died, surrounded by family and loved ones. The officer who tasered Mrs. Nowland has been charged with assault. The 33-year-old senior constable will face court in early July on charges of recklessly causing grievous bodily harm, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and common assault. He remains suspended from duty with pay while investigations continue. Artificial intelligence has emerged as enough of a concern that it made it onto what was already a packed agenda at the G7 summit at the weekend. Concerns about AI's harmful impact coincide with the U.S. attempts to restrict China's access to crucial technology. For now, the U.S. seems to be ahead in the AI race. And there is already the possibility that current restrictions on semiconductor exports to China could hamper Beijing's technological progress. But China could catch up, according to analysts, as AI solutions take years to be perfected. Chinese internet companies are arguably more advanced than U.S. internet companies, depending on how you're measuring advancement. German police have carried out raids in 7 states in a probe into climate campaigners suspected of forming or backing a criminal group because of their controversial activities. 7 people aged 22 to 38 are suspected. No arrests have been made. For months, Letzte Generation, has disrupted traffic in German cities and performed stunts like hurling mashed potato at an artwork. Chancellor Olaf Scholz has condemned their campaign as completely crazy. Some 170 police took part in Wednesday's raids on flats and other buildings in Berlin, Bavaria, Dresden, Hamburg and elsewhere, shutting down the group's website and freezing 2 accounts. The 7 suspects are accused of organizing a campaign to collect at least €1.4 million, £1.2 million, in funding mainly to finance further criminal acts. A woman hit by a police motorcycle escorting Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, through London has died. The family of 81-year-old Helen Holland, from Birchanger in Essex, said she fought for her life for nearly 2 weeks, but irreversible damage to her brain finally ended the battle. Buckingham Palace said the Duchess was deeply saddened and sent her deepest condolences to all the family. The police watchdog is investigating the crash. Ms. Holland had been in London visiting her sister when she was struck at the junction of West Cromwell Road and Warwick Road in Earl's Court on the 10th of May. Following the crash, her family said she was in a coma, and on Friday the police said she remained in a critical condition. U.S. retailer Target is removing some items from its LGBTQ Pride collection range after threats and confrontations in certain stores. The company said on Tuesday the move would protect employees after what it described as volatile circumstances in some of its 2,000 shops. In some states, Target said it had moved Pride Month merchandise to the back of the store. The 2,000-item range includes rainbow motifs and "Love is Love" t-shirts. Since introducing this year's collection, we've experienced threats impacting our team members' sense of safety and well-being while at work, Target said in a statement. Given volatile circumstances, we are making adjustments to our plans, including removing items that have been at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior. Honda is to return to Formula One in a formal capacity in 2026 as engine partner for the Aston Martin team. The company officially pulled out of F1 at the end of 2021, but its engines are still used by the two Red Bull teams and are called Hondas again in 2023. Honda said on Wednesday that F1's pursuit of carbon neutrality by 2030 was the key factor behind its decision to re-enter officially. New rules for 2026 will increase the electrical performance of F1 engines. The sport's governing body, the FIA, is mandating the use of fully sustainable synthetic fuels at the same time. In pursuit of its goal in achieving carbon neutrality by 2030, starting in the 2026 season, the FIA will mandate the use of 100% carbon-neutral fuel, and the deployment of electrical power will be increased significantly by 3 times from the current regulations. The last known Taiwanese comfort woman from World War II has died aged 92, says a Taipei anti-sex trafficking group. Comfort women refers to those forced to work in the Japanese Army's wartime brothels between 1932 and 1945. Activists estimate 200,000 people from the occupied territories were forced into sexual slavery, including about 2,000 women in Taiwan. The woman, who did not wish to be named, died on the 10th of May, said activists. The Taipei Women's Rescue Foundation said her family had permitted the news of her death to be known after a private funeral. Women forced into Imperial Japan's WW2 sexual slavery came from its occupied territories in Korea, China, Taiwan, and the Philippines, among other areas. In recent months, Canadian media have released a steady drip of reports, many based on leaked intelligence, about detailed claims of Chinese meddling in the country's last 2 federal elections in 2019 and 2021, the latest Western nation to sound the alarm over concerns of foreign election interference. Chinese officials have denied any interference, calling the allegations purely baseless and defamatory. The efforts are not believed to have altered the outcomes of either general election, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is under pressure to launch a national public inquiry looking into the allegations, which have strained already challenging diplomatic relations between the two countries. After a prestigious career of more than 3 decades, trailblazing Aboriginal journalist Stan Grant hosted his final show on Monday and walked away from Australian TV screens indefinitely. Racism is a crime. Racism is violence. And I have had enough, Grant wrote in a column last week explaining his decision. The Wiradjuri man made history in 1992 when he became the first Aboriginal presenter on primetime commercial TV in Australia. He went on to win a slew of awards in Australian media and was an international correspondent. Grant's decision to leave has reignited fierce conversations about racism and media diversity in Australia. If one of the few Indigenous presenters on television with a career that took him all over the world can't be protected from racism, for Vinesh Phogat, the year 2023 was crucial in every sense. With just 3 months left for the World Championships and the Asian Games, the Indian wrestler would have been at the peak of her training regime right now. She calls it the ultimate level, the kind of training where the body begins to move automatically and you know in your bones what you have to do. A 2-time medal winner at the World Championships, this was Phogat's chance to score a third. But instead of mentally and physically preparing at a training camp, the wrestler has been living on a dusty pavement in India's capital Delhi, where temperatures have crossed 42 degrees, with very little sleep, and subjected to constant noise for the past month. Ron DeSantis is expected to launch his 2024 bid for the Republican presidential nomination in a live interview on Elon Musk's Twitter on Wednesday. In doing so, the Florida governor is bypassing more traditional methods of kicking off a campaign, such as an in-person rally, a big TV interview, or a slickly produced online video. While he will eventually do all of these, opting for Twitter as his first choice makes a notable statement about the kind of campaign he will run and the type of supporter he hopes to prioritize. The event, details of which are still unclear, is all but guaranteed to provide a friendly audience for Mr. DeSantis. Speaking at an event on Tuesday, Mr. Musk said he would not endorse any candidate at this time. Florida's First Lady Casey DeSantis is expected to play a lead role in her husband's impending campaign for the White House. Is she his secret weapon? It is not unusual for politicians running for office to get their spouses involved, but during Ron DeSantis' tenure as Florida governor, his wife has maneuvered into the spotlight. Mrs. DeSantis, 42, has spearheaded the governor's response on issues ranging from hurricane relief to mental health. But as he now prepares to run for president, some say the extent of her involvement is a problem. Others quoted by the outlet said Mrs. DeSantis helps humanize her husband and give him a softer image, but is blindly ambitious, paranoid, and feeds his worst instincts.